Hello everyone, my name is Lahaina Araneta. I'm a senior associate here at Ashoori Law. We are an immigration law firm based out of California. Today I want to talk to you all about how to file an I-130. This is a standalone form. This is not the I-130 submitted with Form I-485, which is commonly done, perhaps because in this case the foreign national beneficiary is not inside the United States, or perhaps they're not eligible for an adjustment. So today we're going to talk about the I-130, but we're going to exclusively focus on filing this for your spouse. You can file an I-130 for your parents, for your siblings, but today we're only speaking about spouses. So to begin, we're going to talk a little bit about the cover letter, what items we include in the packet. We're going to discuss where you need to send this to, and a few other helpful tips. So to begin, you'll see here that I'm projecting the I-130 cover letter that's redacted on behalf of one of our clients. So the petitioner in this case is a U.S. citizen or a permanent resident. You can file an I-130 and receive benefits for your foreign spouses if you're either of those two. Again, you could be a green card holder, permanent resident, or a U.S. citizen. The foreign national is the beneficiary. So here we're talking a little bit about the fees, the forms included, and the evidence. To begin, we talk about the representation form, so the G28. So whenever we submit anything on behalf of our clients, we have to submit Form G28. The main form here is the I-130. Again, this is the form that the petitioner fills out and signs, saying that this relationship exists and they would like to utilize their benefits as either a permanent resident or a U.S. citizen to bring in their family, this family being the foreign national beneficiary. The fees to file an I-130 can change. So make sure you always check uscis.gov /I-130. The fees can change from time to time, and if your fees are incorrect, they will not refund you. They will not just take out part of the fees and give you, part of the correct fees back. They're just going to reject the entire filing. So it's really important that you're up to date and checking this. The I-130 is the main form. It's several pages long. It's going to ask several questions about the petitioner. It'll ask them how they became a citizen, whether it's by birth, if it was by naturalization, then they're going to ask for the naturalization certificate number. If they're not a citizen, they want to know your green card information, such as your A number. They want to know how you obtained this. They want to know where you lived, where you work. It's essentially just checking to see and have all the biographic information about you to make a complete file to bring in this foreign national beneficiary. The I-130A focuses on the foreign national. So this form is typically signed by the spouse that is benefiting from the I-130. Here, if the spouse is not inside the United States, there's actually an exception. They need not sign it, but they do need to fill out the information to the best of their ability. So you'll see here there's a lot of detailed information, such as 5-year living and work history, or your education history, the names of your family members, where they live, where you live. All of this is broken down in a very, very straightforward format. You just have to go through the forms and make sure you answer as truthfully as possible. Some questions can be confusing, so it's really important that you speak to an attorney to assure that the answers are answered correctly, because if you do answer something wrong, you could be potentially setting yourself up for inadmissibility, a RFE, a waiver that was unnecessary. After that, we also submit photos. These are passport-style photos. You can find the provisions for what is required for U.S. passport-style photo through the Department of State's website. That's travel.state.gov. On this website, you'll see some details in regards to the size of the photos, how you're supposed to look, meaning that you should be looking straight at the camera. The photo should be 2x2. Any pharmacy, most places can take these pictures for you, like Costco, even Walmart. They are about $5 to $12, just ranges, but make sure you follow the provisions in the Department of State's website again, because some countries have totally different passport photo requirements. Like I mentioned, this I-130 is filed on behalf of a spouse. Spousal relationship. So you could file an I-130, like I said, for your children, your parents, your siblings. But in this case, we're doing it for a husband and wife. Here, This is the wife is the one that's a U.S. citizen or a green card holder that's petitioning the foreign national. You need to be able to prove that this relationship exists and is real. So to do this, you submit the marriage certificate, keeping in mind that the I-130 extends to only spouses. So if you are in a domestic partnership or a common law marriage, you will not have a marriage certificate, so you will not be able to utilize these benefits. Again, the I-130 demonstrates is only reserved for U.S. citizens or green card holders. If in this case we have a petitioning spouse that received her citizenship from her birth here in the U.S., we would submit that evidence. So you can see here that the birth certificate is attached. Amended record in this case would just be perhaps information was inputted wrong when they first created the birth certificate. Perhaps a wrong spelling of a name or the parents' names were inputted incorrectly. The beneficiary's birth certificate needs to also be included. This needs to have a certified English translation if it's not in English yet. Note that some countries have different types of birth certificates. Some countries don't even give you birth certificates. So I discussed a little bit below, and we'll go into it in regards to how to prepare for that. But make sure that the documents that you submit is always accepted by the Department of State. They have the provisions by country. For instance, in Taiwan, you could submit what's called a household certification, as opposed to just what we here use in the United States as a birth certificate. So it serves in the same function. If you don't have a birth certificate, which is very common for people of certain countries born beyond 30, 40 years ago, those people can submit an affidavit saying knowledge of the birth by someone who was there, and we'll discuss that again in more detail, and I have a sample below for you all. In addition to all of this, you need to submit evidence that this is a real marriage, a bona fide marriage, that you're not getting married just for the sake of obtaining immigration benefits. And to do that, you need to show bona fide marriage evidence. I have a whole separate video regarding bona fide marriage evidence you can bring at the interview or submit here with your I-130, and it focuses just on spousal relationships. So please go ahead and see that as well. But it would include items such as photos, bills, and receipts of gifts, affidavits of friends and family that know you. Marriage photos are really great, like wedding photos. Social media screenshots are wonderful. There's tons of evidence. It's honestly endless, because all you have to do is convince USCIS this is a real marriage, and whatever evidence you have to convince them of that, you can go ahead and submit. So lastly, we invite USCIS to contact us if they have any questions regarding the petition or the documents submitted herein. Typically, it's very straightforward, so we don't get any further requests from USCIS, but that's something you need to keep in mind, is that if you are unfamiliar with the documents that are accepted by the government, you may be facing a request for evidence. And USCIS is changing their policy now where they don't always issue a request for evidence, they just issue a denial. So be sure to always stay up to date with the current immigration practices. So like I mentioned, some people don't have birth certificates. If that's you, you can go ahead and submit what's called an affidavit in lieu of a birth certificate. And in this case, I have a sample here, which would be written by a family member or a friend that was actually there during the birth of the foreign national. They would provide details, anything in regards to the relationship to this individual, and then, of course, make sure that it's sworn. That would turn it from a letter to an affidavit. So the I-130 can be filed in several locations. It's very important that you keep note where you're sending it to, because again, your application could be rejected for this, and if it's rejected, you now have a later priority date if you're not an immediate relative and not eligible for an adjustment of status. So the longer you wait, the more time that you might be losing be reunited with your spouse. So where you file the I-130 is based on the address in which you live. So here, the petitioner is the individual that we're checking the address for. If you live in either of these states, Alaska, California, etc., you would file in Phoenix. And no, there are two different addresses, one for USPS, which is the United States Postal Service, and they can submit directly to PO boxes, or with FedEx, DHL, UPS, and those are private mail services, do not have access to PO boxes, so they would submit to the street address 1820 East Sky Harbor Circle. If you live in any of these addresses here, Alabama, Illinois, submitted to Texas. In Texas, there's 2 different cities that the addresses are sent to. Unlike with the Phoenix address, it's either Dallas or Louisville. So pay close attention to which mail service you're using to submit your application to, and again, where the petitioner resides. So these are the addresses for standalone I-130s. Again, like I mentioned, I-130s are commonly submitted with I-485s, an application for adjustment of status. In those cases, you would submit to a completely different location, and that would be in Chicago. If the petitioner does not live inside the United States, they have a special provision that they can submit it to the same Dallas or Louisville, Texas address. If you have any questions regarding the substances video, or if you have a suggestion for what kind of topics you'd like us to discuss, please go ahead and leave a comment and like and subscribe. Thanks so much.